We have a call. Billy called in. I believe I didn't hear it was in my ear. I think it was Billy's from Jackson County, I believe. Is that right? Bay County, Billy. Sorry about that, Billy. Billy from Bay County. Go ahead with your question.
I was involved in a 4-vehicle car collision. I was the third vehicle. An Escalade hit a 4Runner. The 4Runner hit me and kind of went over me and hit the car in front of me. I would like to know who. I mean, I know the Escalade hit the 4Runner, and from my understanding, as I speak, they don't have insurance because it was a rental car. Would the 4Runner cover my damages on my car?
You know, Billy, the only time I could see the 4Runner being responsible for your damages is if that vehicle hit you first,
right, and
then was rear-ended by the Escalade. But typically, it sounds to me in that scenario, the Escalade hit a car, hit the 4Runner, 4Runner hit you, and then you were pushed into this other vehicle. The Escalade driver is the one that will be at fault. Now, you mentioned it was a rental vehicle. There could be coverage under a rental policy. It depends.
Right.
You can select it. But the other thing I'd want to check out too is, especially if you're dealing with any sorts of injuries, and we've talked about it on the show a lot, is uninsured motorist coverage.
Right.
What Billy just asked about this question, for those of y'all watching, this is the prime example of why you want to have uninsured motorist coverage. It is coverage that will step in to compensate you for your injuries in the event you're hit by somebody that doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough insurance. And let's say this Escalade did have insurance, but it was a minimal policy.
Right.
You have the potential of occupants in the 4Runner. You have Billy and whoever was in his vehicle and the vehicle that Billy was pushed into. All of those folks, the drivers and the passengers, if there are some, they can all make a claim against the Escalade as well. And now you start adding up all these claims, even if they have an okay policy, you can see how those benefits could be diminished very quickly if you have to spread them out to multiple people.
Right. Because this is not a strict liability situation, Billy. That vehicle that ran into you has to have had some culpability or fault.
Right.
If they're being pushed into you, then that's not something that they did negligent. They didn't fail to use reasonable care. But many times those rental cars are required to at least maintain through the rental agency, whereas they're not required to maintain super levels of coverage. They're at least required to maintain the state minimums, which would be a $10,000 worth of property damage per vehicle, $20,000 for the whole accident spread through all those vehicles. So at a minimum, there should be that under Florida law. But then you also need to look at the individual driver's personal policy as well. It's always important when you're dealing with rental cars. We see this all the time. Many times when people are down here renting cars, they may be here for work. So you need to make sure whether or not there is a potential employer, because if you're in the course and scope of employment, there can be liability there. And that's something we have to do all the time. I mean, anytime in Florida you have an accident, there's at least 3 parties you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at the driver who was negligent, the owner of the vehicle under the dangerous instrumentality doctrine. That means in Florida, if you own the vehicle, you are more or less as liable as the driver, with certain caveats on the amount of damages. And then if you're doing something for somebody, if you were in the course of some venture. So if you're down here on a business trip and flew in and now you're going somewhere, typically if you're flying in and here for work, everything you do while you're down here is more likely than not going to be considered in the course and scope. So Billy, there's options there, but it's important that you have someone help you do that.
Absolutely. Billy, thanks for the call.